It's built by the Moog company, of course, known for synthesizers and such, and it's a lap steel. It's the second instrument they've come out, which is a string instrument. The first was the regular Moog guitar. And this has some significant features on it that I'm going to demonstrate. One is the ability to harness infinite sustain in a way that otherwise, there are other devices, some devices on the market that do this, but otherwise you're talking about trying to be at very high volumes with amplifying an instrument to get this kind of sustain out of it. And this allows you to do this at bedroom volumes, which is great for an old geezer like me because, you know, I've been on the planet a while, my ears are getting a little shot, you know, I don't like the blast furnace volumes like I used to, but I like some of that sound and harmonics and such you can get. And then the other thing this adds to the guitar palette is a couple of actual volume to it and see what you get. Just get the sound I'm talking about here. Okay, so that's just the acoustic volume you're hearing in the room. You're not hearing any, I have the volume all the way down. It's like the magic fingers on a bed in your lap. Okay, so let's bring up a little volume. So in addition to this kind of amazing, stop, feedback capability, it's got a couple of ways to harness it. One is, I was in full feedback mode there, and another way is a partial feedback mode where basically when you go to string, it allows whatever the new string, whatever string actually is generating the most energy to take over, which is kind of nice because you can do the same kind of effects but without this, you know, all the strings and everything getting away from you. So I'll select that mode here and give you a sense of that. Advantage of this kind of technology is kind of an anti-sustain mode, a mode that's really sucking the string energy out of the strings themselves and creating almost more of a banjo or some kind of a plucked instrument that has a really short decay. I'm going to just loop a little part with that. Fellow asked me if I'd at least play something in a sub-octave because I'm crashing the bass looping portion of the song, so here you go.
Not low enough. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
I think so. I think it's low enough.
Bill does requests.
And then also, I was talking earlier, it has some filters built in. The kind of filters you'd expect to find on an analog synthesizer are built into the guts of this. And before I went any further, I want to show you, there's somewhat of a Star Trek Enterprise mission control array of tone controls and such here. There are various functions, some pretty traditional, like that's your master volume, there's your master tone. This is the intensity control for the sustain, and then this knob switches between the pickups and their relative degree that they're affecting that sensitivity and sustain. This is a normal pickup selector because these pickups actually do serve a dual function. They're both amplifying the sound of the guitar, but they're also creating this infinite feedback. And let's face it, feedback is looping.
Yeah.
You know, as Stan Cart so definitely showed yesterday, it is definitely a form of looping. And so I'm going to use a little bit of filters. I'm also going to add a little bit more effect from my my rig down here, which is just going to add a little bit of distortion and such to this sound to give you an idea what it's going to sound when you start to color it up too. Okay, so first the filter. So now when I switch to the filter, the pedal is now taking on that role, and the role of sustaining goes back to the original control that controlled that sustain. These filters are really fascinating because, you know, I'm a guitar player, I like wah-wah pedals, but this is like wah-wah of another dimension. It's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger wah-wahs because it's got such a range, a sweep, that it can almost get away from you, and it's also capable of just minute motions can create some real expressive effects. And there's also a ladder filter on this. Now, I'm not totally sure about what a ladder filter does, but I think it's more of an envelope follower, kind of a triggered thing. So, in this case, the expression pedal is simply switching which frequencies that are getting more influenced as you do this effect. So, it'll be, I think, more of like a triggered wah thing. Let's see if I know what I'm talking about. Sounds like a triggered wah to me. So for instance, at the very toe end of the range, you get quite a bit of high frequency coming through, and then at the lower range, I hope this first one's not getting as low your speaker.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you learn how to play that good?
Practice, my boy, practice.
Yeah. How about sustainers for each string?
Well, that's the second mode I was talking about. Is if it's set up properly. Like I said, this is a prototype, so they've done some refinements since this one's come on the market,
yeah.
and there's a few issues I've been discussing with them that like a critical one, like what's the optimum wood for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is an ash body one. For my personal taste, this gets a little on the too bright side at times for this platform. So I can see myself, the one I tried originally at the factory was basswood, which is a very mid-rangey wood. I think works a little bit better, but I don't know. When I play it for a while and I work it for a while, then I go, well, you know, this is really cool too, you know, it's like splitting hairs here. The technology is really cool, you know. And like I say, I've always liked the sustain and aspect of sustain and all that. I just don't like particularly playing at high volumes necessarily, but still achieving that effect. And it's the first thing I've seen that comes along that has a lot of control when doing that. It's not just on, it's on with nuance, it's on with ability to really play with it. This is that setting I was telling you about. So essentially one string will take over as you...
Yeah, okay.
There's a few things that they needed to do. Like for one thing, they need to use stainless steel strings on a guitar like this, and then another, because for some reason how the pickup works, they just seem to be the best ones. They also say that you can get some. You might try a ceramic bar rather than a steel bar, because there's a certain little artifact that happens when this bar gets close to the pickup, which I actually kind of like, because, you know, a weird sound, use it, you know.
Terribly beautiful.
Pardon?
Terribly beautiful.
Terribly beautiful. Yeah. So, take a dinner break. Any other questions?
Well, just a second, if it's all right. Perry, would you mind coming up for just a second? If anyone has any questions about hardware looping, I'd say Per and Bill are as good as it gets in knowing about software looping and hardware looping. If anybody just has any questions,
a death match.
Geek questions,
Death
questions.
No, software will win.
Greg House just asked me what's the cheapest solution for MIDI synchronization, and I wasn't entirely sure.
In a hardware device or in a software device?
Well, there's the question.
So in a hardware device, it would probably be, at this point, Bob's new looper coming out, the LP2.
Yeah.
Because it's the only small one I know that has sync capability, so you get a lot of, you could put everybody in line with one another and it's well synced up. For some reason, a lot of the major manufacturers haven't gotten sync or MIDI really together on their units. The RC50 was somewhat problematic when we tried to do some clocking with that, but I know some people have had some,
the RC50.
and that's gone now.
Yeah,
and I don't think their new unit has MIDI on it.
How about in the software realm, Per?
Well, the best solution I know about is to use an Apple computer because the OS X has it built in. I'd say use a computer from Apple because it has already this virtual MIDI cables built in, so any application can send a tempo sync signal into any other. But I know since the days I was using XP on Windows machines that there is a hack you can do to Windows to create a similar operation system virtual MIDI. It's called MIDI joke. MIDI yoke, not a joke, but yoke with
Yolk.
Yeah, yoke.
Like egg yolk?
Yeah. But I was
That's like ox yolk.
So, well, that's the cheapest. You know, most software support it if there isn't a bug, which there is regularly with software, you know, because the manufacturers, they want to put out new cool features to lure more, to get more people to buy it, and that's more economical compared to working to iron out old bugs. So software tend to have this, you know, heavy backload of bugs. It's kind of built in. But this is also why I usually recommend people to not use free software, because those guys have a daytime job and they don't have the time. And if their product fails, well, so what? But the professional guys, they depend on it, so they will really try to fix the bugs if you report about them.
And I know that Ableton's Live has a lot of synchronization capabilities, but you actually use a different system, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain what your system
is?
is?
Short about Ableton then. The latest upgrade of Ableton Live got much better in the slave sync position. Like if you use anything and if you want Live to follow tempo, especially a MIDI clock. There are different systems for sync, but MIDI clock is the most usual. So Ableton used to be quite bad, and I abandoned it some years ago, but now it's much better.
And what do you use? What is your system now?
Well, I have many. Well, one is Moog Lapsteel, which is almost totally configurable modular system. The trick is to use a host application and then fill it up with the plugins that you think you need. Like if you look at Bill's setup here, the pedal board is the host application and every pedal is a plugin.
Mm-hmm.
And in my world, Moog Lapsteel is one host application where I can cable together different effect chains with plugins. Another one is Mainstage that I will use later tonight when I play here. Mainstage that comes with a Logic Studio from Apple. And I sometimes use Ableton Live as well. Those are my three favorites.
Are you using Mobius anymore?
It has several different, but I'm not syncing Mobius, I'm syncing the host application and the plugins. Right. So I use the looper, Mobius looper. I run it as an audio unit plugin inside Mainstage, and then I set the looper, the Mobius looper, to calculate the tempo. As soon as I have created the first loop, it calculates a tempo. And the trick here is to set a maximum and a minimum tempo, so you have a range that is comfortable, that you know that all the like delays and tremolo and those kind of beat dependent plugins, that they will sound good within.
Yeah.
And if you play like a dubstep inspired tune, you just double or half the tempos, so you can still keep the possible range between 60 and 119 BPM.